Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info. Oldham Coliseum Theatre is opening its 2022 autumn season with a revival of Jim Cartwright's acclaimed portrait of life in a Lancashire town in Thatcher's Britain of the 1980s, Road, which won multiple awards following its premiere at the Royal Court Theatre in London in 1986. Returning to the Coliseum after directing the theatre's first production after 15 months of COVID-induced closure, Love and Stuff, in September 2021, is director Gitika Buttoo, originally from Yorkshire but returning north after working at the National Theatre in London earlier this year. I spoke to Gitika while the play was in rehearsal on the day the UK's third female Prime Minister moved into Downing Street, and I started by asking her why she thought this was the time to revive this play.
Yeah, well, I think it's got so many parallels to the time that we're living in at the moment. As you may or may not, Road is a play set in the 80s, sort of Maggie Thatcher times. Politically, it's not a very good place to be in. Economically, everyone's suffering. And essentially, it's just a walk through these people's lives on Road, just at a road in Lancashire somewhere, talking about their struggles because of all of that, but also kind of just how people are getting on. Yeah. And that, you know, people aren't dwelling on their struggles, they're just surviving. And to survive, what helps with that? A bit of music relief, a bit of drinking, lots of things to kind of feel like they're escaping from a world that is just getting more and more difficult to live in. And I know it's a bit grim, but I think that is kind of where we could be headed as a country, especially with, I just switched on the news this morning about the recession that we're going to go into in autumn and how that's going to affect lots of households. And the more that we interrogate this play as a company in rehearsals, the more it's becoming blindingly obvious that, yeah, that's where we're headed. So wherever as a theatre maker, if I can be making work that speaks to now, then I absolutely should be. So that's exactly why this title was picked.
Yeah. Well, I remember 1987. I take it you don't.
No, I don't.
But yeah, I remember that it's Thatcher's Britain, basically, isn't it, that they're talking about in this play, where it's set. There were a lot of plays set around about then, from mainly from northern playwrights, and it's fairly hard hitting, isn't it? It doesn't shy away from the harsher side of life.
No, you're bang on. Jim Cartwright does not do that. And I think that's important because that's life. You know, in life, we can't hide the bad bits. They come with the good bits and we have to celebrate each of them. But I think what I really enjoy about Jim's writing particularly is how included we feel as an audience and how he breaks that fourth wall. And I've, in this production, I've tried to stay true to that as much as possible and opened the walls so much that at the start of the play, hopefully the characters are going to come and join you in the auditorium and outside in the bar and then guide you onto the stage. And that sort of, that style should continue all the way through because, like you say, we don't want to shy away from what's happening, and how better to do that than break the fourth wall and get everyone involved.
Yeah, but like a lot of playwrights, northern playwrights in particular at the time, I'm thinking people like, you know, Alan Bleasdale and Willie Russell, who were writing for stage and for TV, a lot of plays about these sorts of issues. There's still a lot of humour in there. There's a lot of humour that comes naturally from the characters, isn't there? Yeah,
there's loads of that.
And warmth as well, the warmth of the way they bond together despite the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, maybe I'm biased because I am Northern, but I also feel like...
Me too.
Yeah, I also feel like you do just warm to every character naturally. And I think that's through Jim's writing, but also, I don't know, as soon as I pick up a Northern play, I always feel like that. I always feel like I can relate. And yeah, I kind of feel invited in by the story. So I think the connection on that level is brilliant as well.
Yeah, you talk about Thatcher's Britain. We're talking now on the day when we get a new Prime Minister in Downing Street who is said to be modelling herself on Margaret Thatcher. So maybe it is relevant in that way as well.
Oh no, it's sending absolute shivers down my spine, all of that. You almost want to switch off and detach from what's happening. But yeah, what a day.
Because it is a very political play, isn't it? You can't shy away from the politics of it and from drawing parallels with what's happening now.
Yeah, absolutely. But also what's interesting is it's a very political play, but no one talks directly about politics. No one talks about leaders or figures or the government. But what you see is a direct result of the government, you know what I mean? About, their choices and what that has done to working class Britain. And in this place specifically, working class Lancashire.
Yeah. Because I remember I was at school in the 80s, and I can remember people actually saying, well, there's no point in studying because there are no jobs at the end of it anyway. And it's that sort of attitude, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what is actually, there are multiple stories. Give us a flavour of some of the stories that are in the play.
Yeah, so you, like I said before, you meet about 20 or 30 different characters. Some people come on for a minute, some people are on for a little bit longer and do some longer monologues. And they're all, what I really love about the range of characters is they span lots of ages. So the youngest, I think, is a 12-year-old girl. The oldest person in there is in their mid-70s. So you hear from lots of different ages. And one of the stories that sticks out for me is a character called Skin Lad, who talks about how he got attacked by skinheads and then has now kind of adopted a personality and adopted a bit of a coat where he fights all the time and he's quite aggressive, but he also likes to stay calm and meditate. And basically, I think he's been through some serious trauma. And what I've done through casting, because diversity is huge on my agenda, especially being a South Asian director, I've cast that part as a South Asian man. And we've really lent into that as a character and looked at what it would be like to be a South Asian man enduring an attack like that by skinheads. It's a really common story from that time. My dad went through it. My uncles went through it. So we've gone through it from that lens as somebody who's been a victim and then as a result has come out, and this is the trauma that he's suffering. So that wasn't in the original. I don't think it was cast that way, but I've chosen to do it that way just because I don't want to erase those black and brown voices that did exist during the 80s, because I think they're just as important. Yeah,
because on the surface it was a white British working class form of theatre, I suppose, at the time, wasn't it? But the National Front was the racist party that was quite big at the time. I remember the NF painted on walls quite a lot. So you've done some research into that in rehearsals already, have you?
Yeah, we have, and we've looked at it tried to look at it through different lenses, and I think it's really important because, there were not just white working class people, there were people of different colours who were also working class. So as much as possible, that's what we've tried to add to the play through some of the characters.
I'm not looking at the cast that you've got. I notice as Scullery, who's like the main narrator of the play, you've got Richard J. Fletcher, who most Oldham audiences will know as the regular pantomime dame, but this is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's nice. I think it's a challenge for him. I think he's well up for it. Like you say, I think Oldham audiences will know him and love him for lots of different reasons. One of those being pantos, and this is a totally different light that we're going to see Richard in. But he's absolutely thriving in the rehearsal room. He's just picked it up like a duck to water, and he's nailing it. And I'm very excited for Oldham to see Richard's version of Scullery.
Yeah, in a sense, there is similarity because before he was the panto dame, he was the comedian for years in panto, and it's that getting the audience on your side and talking to the audience. So it's got that in common, I suppose, hasn't it?
Yeah, of course. It's something that comes really natural to Richard. Like you naturally warm to him, and he does that. He does that gig really well of opening things out and making you feel like you're part of the story.
Yeah. This isn't your first time at the Oldham Coliseum, though, is it? You effectively reopened the Coliseum after 15 months of lockdown, didn't you, with Love and stuff? How did that feel to be opening up again after all that time?
Yeah, it was. You know what? It was amazing. I love working here. It feels a bit like home, and it was such an honour to be asked to open the Coliseum with that title. I just loved it, and I think it's really interesting because that piece, I don't know whether you saw it, but it was totally different. It was a little bit slapsticky. It was very much on the comedy side of things, and this feels totally different, and I'm well up for the challenge.
Yeah, and there are similarities, I suppose, with Jim Cartwright in that, a bit like his play too. You had two people playing lots of different characters, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. For that one, there was two actors, and I think there was about 19 characters that they played between them. And it was so much fun. But all that stuff's come in handy because I had to delve really into my practice with multi-rolling and, adopting different characters to one body. And we are doing a lot of that in Road because I think the most one person plays is 4 characters, which is still a hefty amount for a 2-hour play. So it's all come in handy.
Is that a style that you prefer, do you think, where rather than something naturalistic where the characters pretend there's no audience there?
I don't know, David. I don't think I got the choice. I think I just got lambered with it, and then a smaller budget, and then you just kind of have to make it work. But you know what? Saying that, I do really enjoy it because I love pushing actors out of their comfort zone because I think they make their best work when they're not in their comfort zone. Yeah. So I love it. So maybe it is a style that I'm going to adopt in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, because some actors, you're not going to get that with Richard after his panto training, but some actors are scared of looking out into the audience, aren't they, and actually getting eye contact with the audience. Yeah,
of course. And also, not everybody is comfortable with theatre. Some actors have done more TV and film, other people. So you're absolutely right. It's theatre. Acting is a different skill within its own right.
Yeah. You won the JMK Trust bursary for young directors in 2017. And despite COVID coming in the middle of that, you've, in the last 5 years, you worked with the Leeds Playhouse, Bolton Octagon, many others, and then most recently the National Theatre. Has it felt like a bit of a whirlwind 5 years for you?
Yeah, it really has. When you say it out loud like that, it really has. I've kind of not really stopped, but I've been really lucky. I've been really, I think luck is the only way to describe it. And I've just been on a journey and just been grateful to not been getting off it. So, I think it's been interesting because I've not just worked in the north, heading down south and doing the national stuff in London and seeing how theatre works down there is so eye-opening. Yeah. It's really informed my practice being able to work at all of those venues. And it's just been brilliant, really transferable.
Yeah, I mean the National Theatre. It's not even. It doesn't bear any relation to any other theatre, north or south, does it? It's just a completely different world by itself, isn't it? So how did you find it there?
Yeah, it's just absolutely massive. That's the only way I can describe it. And I loved it. I really enjoyed it. But there's nothing like home. There's nothing like being in a northern theatre with northern voices all of the time. But no, it was one of the best experiences of my life because that show was, I think it made a record because it was the first ever piece of new writing on the Olivier stage that was a fully South Asian cast. Right. And I needed to be a part of that. So I was so grateful when I got offered the opportunity to make the show. Yeah.
And you go from that vast National Theatre to a theatre where you have to turn sideways to pass somebody in the corridors backstage.
Like I said, it feels like home.
But you worked in quite a few northern theatres. But what's stood out for you in the last few years apart from the National?
I think I'm not just saying this because I'm here, but I do think Oldham Coliseum has a really big place in my heart. I really enjoy the space. I enjoy the audiences. And other places that I've worked at, Leeds Playhouse, I think, is one that pops out for me. In fact, after this, I'm going to make a version of Macbeth at Leeds Playhouse with some conservatoire students. I just love the vibe at Leeds Playhouse. I love all the staff. I love the way that they support and develop artists that are local. They've got a real commitment to that. And I've felt it ever since I connected with them back in 2017. Yeah. And that connection has never stopped, even though I've not been working at the building for a little bit of time. I've always felt supported. So I think those guys hold a big place in my heart. And also, I haven't worked there properly yet, as in I've not done a big show there, but I really love the Royal Exchange. I've done lots of work with their engagement department, and they do a community den. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but they pop up in lots of different places in Greater Manchester and try to sort of get audiences to the theatre who wouldn't ordinarily go, and I am well into it, and I've loved being a part of that, and I hope all of that work continues because that's what it's about.
Yeah. I've noticed the last few years at Oldham, because there is a big South Asian community in and around Oldham. We never used to see them in the theatre until a few years ago, possibly when Chris took over. I don't know whether as artistic director, I don't know whether he made a special effort. But we've seen quite often you see non-white faces on stage, but not in the audience. But I've seen more and more in the audience. I don't know whether that's something that you've noticed.
Yeah, it is. And I think it is. It's lots of things. It's not just to do with programming. I mean, programming has got a huge part to play in it. But it's how, for me personally, as a South Asian audience member, it's about what you've got on, but then what you've got on for me afterwards and what that engagement looks like afterwards. Because if it is just one brown show that you're commissioning and then you're forgetting about those audiences for the next 2 years, how do you expect to come to the next show? But I have noticed a lot more faces that look like mine, and I think that's really important, and I think that's down to lots of things, and we've got to keep working together as artists and artistic leaders like Chris to make sure that we have a commitment to making sure that we keep those faces in the theatre. Yeah,
so they're not just coming to see one show, but you're saying they're coming in asking, what have you got next? What else have you got?
What else have you got? Yeah. And also, you know, those artists that are making those shows, trying to look at it through different lenses, like Road could have really easily just been a white working class story again, another version of, but really challenging yourself as a director to make sure that you are representing lots of voices in, you know, even if it's just down to casting, it's so important.
Yeah. I noticed when on the JMK Trust website that you'd been doing a Zoom workshop on there for directors. Now, I've spoken to quite a few directors, particularly early in lockdown, who were saying they hate trying to do some kind of rehearsal over Zoom. So how do you lead a practical directing workshop over Zoom?
Oh God, with a lot of planning and a lot of just winging it. And I think the second is probably the most helpful, but it is really difficult to do practical stuff over Zoom, but it can be done. And I had a lot of practice in lockdown because I do also, aside from making shows, I do a lot of engagement with vulnerable adults, young people, and also refugees and asylum seekers. And all of that work continued on Zoom for me over lockdown. Right. So I got really good, I think, at trying to engage with people online. And a lot of that stuff can just be done not on the screen. So I like to set things and then get people to go away and do things in other rooms and then come back. So it still feels like you're free a little bit and you can be a bit creative and not tied down to the screen. But I mean, I way prefer it doing it in person. But if we have to do it on Zoom, then that's what we have to do.
Yeah, it's better than not doing it at all, I suppose, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, because I do some teaching on Zoom as well, and the practical side of it is more challenging because you get delays, you get people dropping off all of a sudden. But it just needs a bit more thought, I suppose, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So you've got you've got Road coming up fairly soon. What stage are you at in rehearsals at the moment?
So I'm coming to you from week 3 in rehearsal at the moment. So we just got through a little bit of a stagger through on Friday. We've hit every single scene in the play, which is nice. And this week, we're working heavily with an intimacy coach. And there's lots of kissing and touching in the play. And we're also working heavily with the movement director this week and looking at how we can start to shape some of those scenes through movement and get some of those transitions looking slicker and get them fast, because this play is a little bit of a whirlwind. So once you're on, we need to just be zooming forward. So to keep that momentum, I think it'll be really interesting to see what our movement director can bring to the company to make that happen.
Yeah, especially when you move in a big cast on a fairly small stage, I suppose. That pace is important, isn't it?
Of course, yeah.
And so you've got technical rehearsal coming up when everything falls apart and you've got to try and put it back together again. But at the moment, it's all feeling okay.
I think so, yeah. The set is epic, and that's down to Richard Foxton, who designed it, who's an amazing, amazing artist. Yeah. And there's lots of things, I wish I could show you properly, but there's lots of things here in the room, like a door and a sofa and a chair and stuff like that and that we've been able to have in rehearsals. But I know as soon as we get into those technical rehearsals, just having the set on stage will be like having a 10th member of our company. And we're going to have to get used to that. So you're right, lots of things could change next week, but that's kind of part of the gig, isn't it? So we've just got to embrace it.
So when this finishes, what's next for you? I'm assuming from your past history that there's a lot of plans for the future.
Oh, don't jinx it for me, David. The luck could run out at any point, but I'm thinking, so we've got Macbeth coming up next at Leeds Playhouse, which I'm really excited about. And then I'm due to be developing a show with the Story House as well. And I'm off back down to London in the new year to develop a new VR project with VR headsets with the National, it's a one-woman show, looking at identity, but also looking at missing persons. I can't say too much, but that's kind of what it's about. It's interrogating what happens when someone goes missing on purpose. So yeah, we'll be exploring that with VR headsets in the new year. So I'm very excited to be doing that.
So you diversify. Again, it's not just about people on stage talking to each other. It's the theatre's much more than that, with VR headsets and talking to the audience. And
yeah, I think it's really interesting though. I think VR, personally, I think VR is going to make waves in theatre, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that stuff, especially because the Arts Council's initiatives are really aimed towards digital stuff now, and so I think we are going to see a lot more of those. So I'm excited to kind of be doing it now and developing things now, so that when it makes a little bit of a hit, that I kind of have explored the form a little bit, so that I won't be half bad at it, I hope, but let's see.
That was Gitika Buttoo, whose production of Road by Jim Cartwright will open on the 16th of September and run until the 1st of October 2022. For more information and tickets, see coliseum.org.uk, and for more information about Gitika herself, see gitikabuttoo.co.uk. You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.